We cannot be held responsible for any injuries or damages that result from attempting this repair. In this video, we'll be demonstrating how to replace a front screen on the iPhone 5S. Here you can see the replacement screen, as well as a toolkit needed for this repair. Both items can be found on our website by following the link in the description. Here you can see that our phone still functions normally, we just have a cracked glass. This is a most common situation. If your LCD is also damaged, or your digitizer is not detecting touch in all areas, replacing the screen assembly will also solve your problem. Note that you cannot cleanly separate any of these three components, the glass, LCD, or digitizer, from the original assembly. They are all fused together, so you need to be sure to purchase the full screen assembly. With the phone powered off, we'll start by removing two pentalobe screws located on opposite sides of the sync port using our pentalobe screwdriver. We'll now be using a suction cup and pry tools to lift the screen out. We'll be lifting it out at an angle, as there is still a cable attached to the home button, as well as cables up top attached to the screen. In order to get good suction, we'll first apply packaging tape over the surface of the screen. Now place your suction cup as close to the home button as possible, secure it in place, and begin to lift out the screen. As you're working to free the screen, remember that there are still cables attached underneath. So be careful when lifting out the screen, and also don't insert your tools too far into the sides of the phone, as you could damage a component. Now watch as we work our way around the perimeter to free the screen from the casing. We'll be using our metal pry tool as well as our guitar picks. Here you can see the home button cable still attached to the logic board. Our next step will be to remove this cable. We'll now remove this small metal plate which is covering the home button plug. Usually when we remove the plate, the plug comes up with it. So we'll use our small flathead screwdriver to insert it as shown and gently twist. In this case, both the metal plate and the home button became unplugged. If this doesn't happen in your case, it's very easy to unplug the home button cable. You can simply use the same process as you did to remove the metal cover. We'll now lift the screen up as shown at an angle, as the three cables at the top are still attached. In order to access these cables, we'll need to remove this metal plate, which is held in place by 4 small Phillips screws. The screws inside the phone are different sizes, so as you're removing each component, you should set them in the orientation they came out alongside the part. We now have 3 connectors that will need to be carefully unplugged using our non-conductive plastic pry tool, as shown in the video. Once these 3 cables have been unplugged, the entire screen assembly can be separated from the phone. With the phone open, you may consider also replacing the battery. Simply remove the 2 Phillips screws holding this metal plate, which covers the battery connector, unplug the connector, just like the screen cables, and install your new battery. Here's our replacement screen alongside our original. We'll need to transfer some parts from our original screen over to our new screen before we install it. We'll start by removing the home button assembly. All 3 screws associated with this area are Phillips. The screw being removed now should stay in place when it's unscrewed. On the back side is a small metal piece that's important. So if the screw comes undone, make sure not to lose that metal piece. You'll find the 3rd and final screw located behind the cable as shown here. Be extremely careful when working with the home button assembly, as the cable could tear very easily, and then you'll have to replace another part. Now set aside the metal backing from the home button along with its associated screws. Now this side part of the home button cable is held down with a light adhesive. So we'll use our plastic pry tool and gently slide it underneath in the areas shown, and it should pop right up. The rubber grommet part of the home button is also held down with a light adhesive around the perimeter. So we'll take our finger on the opposite side and lightly push up, applying more and more pressure gradually until this piece comes free. Gently peel the home button away from any remaining adhesive. Our first step in removing the top components is to remove the 2 Phillips screws shown. To remove this metal cover, we'll use our small flathead screwdriver to unclip the part shown here. Now the earpiece may come up along with your screwdriver because of the magnetism, which is okay because we need to remove this part anyway. Similar to the home button cable, these cables up top are held down with a light adhesive, so we'll use our non-conductive plastic pry tool to wedge underneath of them and pry upwards. Included with this assembly are the light sensor, the proximity sensor, the front-facing camera, as well as a microphone. These will all stay attached to the metal plate located in the center, which we'll remove next. Next, remove the 5 Phillips screws being pointed out here, which hold the metal plate in place. To free the metal insert, apply pressure as shown here, and use your small flathead screwdriver to wedge it in between the gap and lift out the metal insert. Finally, we have two plastic pieces to remove, which serve to properly position the front-facing camera and the light sensor. We'll transfer these onto our new screen. Before moving forward, it's a good idea to plug in your replacement screen and verify its functionality. Make sure the touchscreen responds in all areas, and the LCD does not have any dead lines or pixels. Be cautious when plugging in the cables. You don't want to damage the connectors on the board, or your device may not be repairable. When the connector is properly positioned over its plug, it should snap into place. Now fold the screen down, but don't push it flush. It's not necessary at this point. There's no home button. There's also no front-facing camera or earpiece. This is simply to test the functionality of the screen. Now remove the plastic protector on the back side of the LCD on your replacement screen. Position the metal insert and screw in the 5 Phillips screws that hold this piece in place. Now place the plastic inserts for the front-facing camera and light sensor onto the screen. Now the following components that are being pointed out need to be placed in the areas shown in order for the screen to close flush. Also, these components may not function correctly if they're not properly placed. Now we'll reinstall the ear speaker, and it's easy to know the orientation because there are 2 extensions as well as the 2 screw holes, which let you know this part's placed properly. Next, replace the metal cover and proceed to install the 2 Phillips screws holding this cover in place. This completes our work at the top portion of the phone. We'll now move to reinstall the home button. Properly align the home button and place it within the opening on the new screen. The existing adhesive around the rubber grommet will be sufficient to hold the home button to the new screen. The same goes for the cable, which extends to the side. Our next step is to install the metal home button plate, which is held in place by 2 small Phillips screws. And 1 final Phillips screw which secures the cable in place, along with the metal ground on the back side. At this point, we're ready to connect the new screen and set it flush into place. We'll start by forming the cables with a slight bend, as that's how they'll sit when the phone is closed. Make note of the plastic extensions on the top part of the screen. These will need to tuck inside indents in the metal frame of the phone. So we'll first set the top portion of the phone flush and then make our way to the bottom. But first, we have to plug in the screen cables and reinstall the metal cover along with the 4 Phillips screws which hold that cover in place. When plugging in these cables, be sure they're properly placed over the connectors. If you find yourself having to press extremely hard, you should readjust the position of the cable. You don't want to risk damaging the connector on the logic board, as the phone may not be repairable. Also, because of the way the cables overlap, they must be plugged in the order shown in the video. After the first cable has been plugged in, be certain not to extend the screen beyond 90 degrees from the phone. If you do so, you risk damaging the cables connected to the screen, and you may need a new screen at that point. Our next step will be to plug in the home button cable and reinstall the metal cover. Here we'll give you a nice close-up of exactly how this is done. The cable plugs in just like the screen cables did, however it's very small and it's hard to get your finger in there, so you'll likely need to use a tool such as a plastic pry tool or a small flathead screwdriver. To reinstall the metal cover, simply place it over the port in the proper orientation and then push down, and it should snap right into place. At this point, we're ready to close the phone by setting the screen flush. We'll start at the top and work our way towards the bottom, setting a portion flush at a time. Do not attempt to close all 4 corners at once by applying pressure on the top and bottom, as you'll crack the screen. Follow the process as demonstrated in the video to avoid damaging your replacement screen. One side note is that if the casing was extremely damaged in the event that cracked the screen, it may not accommodate a new screen. In this situation, you either have to bend the casing out or replace the casing entirely in order to allow a new screen to fit. You can see in the video as we work our way from top to bottom and gradually set the screen flush along the way. You should not have to press extremely hard. If you do, you risk cracking the screen. If you find the screen is not fitting, chances are the casing suffered some damage. Another important tip is to not press in the center of the screen. This will not help you. You should only be applying force along the perimeter of the screen. With the screen flush on all sides, we can complete this repair by reinserting the 2 pentalobe screws on opposite sides of the sink port. To find all the parts and tools required for this repair and many others, visit our website. Thanks for watching.